Hello, and welcome to this evening's Energy and Environment Legislative Outlook and Power Hour with State Senator Judy Amabile, State Representatives Kyle Brown, Junie Joseph, and Lesley Smith. In a moment, I'll hand things over to Chris Hoffman, who will be moderating tonight's panel. We will now I will read the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge with respect as non-native people that the land on which we stand, live, and learn is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. Let us seek to understand what it means to be in right relationship today with the traditional stewards of this land and with this land itself and all the creatures that inhabit it. I see we don't quite yet have all of our guests, but let me go ahead and do the introductions briefly about each of them, and maybe by the time we're done with that, we'll have a few more. State Senator Judy Amabile represents District 18 in the County of Boulder. She is the chair of the Appropriations Committee and a member of the Joint Budget Committee. State Representative Kyle Brown represents District 12 in the counties of Boulder and Broomfield. He's the chair of the Health and Human Services Committee and a member of the Energy and Environment Committee. State Representative Junie Joseph represents District 10 in the county of Boulder, and she is on the following committees: Appropriations, Energy and Environment, Legal Services, and Finance. Finally, and last but not least, State Representative Lesley Smith represents District 49 in Boulder, Clear Creek, Gilpin, and Larimer counties. She is on the Agriculture, Water and Natural Resources, and Education committees. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Really appreciate your being here. And now I will hand it over to Chris Hoffman, who's going to handle the next part. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. And thank you all of our representatives here for your service to our community and to the citizens of Colorado. And we want to thank you for standing in opposition to those actions of the Trump-Musk administration that are illegal and unconstitutional. And also Empower Our Future wants to thank both Representative Joseph and Representative Brown for voting no on the committee vote for the bill that is attempting to redefine nuclear energy as clean. And we hope that Representative Smith and Senator Amabile will follow their example. So now we'd like to ask each legislator to take 3 to 4 minutes to talk about your efforts and hopes and bills this year, especially those related to climate and environment for this legislative session. So please, I know both Kyle Brown has a limited amount of time, so maybe Kyle, are you available to go first? He's on phone right now. Are you available, Kyle?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry that I don't have my video on, but I'm happy to chat a little bit about stuff that I'm working on in the energy and environment space this year. I'll be very brief, but first of all, I just want to thank you for inviting me to be with all of you this evening. I always enjoy the Empower Hours, and I always enjoy being invited and giving a chance to chat with you all about issues that are important to you all. I think for me, I'm really focused. I continue to focus on taking climate action, especially in the face of a federal administration that no longer, let's be honest, really believes in climate change or that we should really do anything about it. So I'm really proud to be working with Representative Smith on, I think, a key piece of legislation related to renewable energy, and I'll let her talk about that. I am also excited to be working with Senator Cutter on a bill to help us recycle our lithium batteries in a better way. This is, lithium batteries are in lots of different things, especially as we electrify. And there's actually a legitimate only environmental concern, but also safety hazard for folks who are picking up and hauling our recyclables. So creating an EPR type program at the state level for this kind of recycling is really, really important. I am also committed to working on the data center problem. This is something that Rep. Smith and I have had extensive conversations about, and I am concerned about the impact on our environment that these data centers are having. AI and cloud storage is certainly a part of our daily lives now, but it needs to be done in a way that's environmentally sound. And I remain concerned about the impact that these data centers have on our environment and some of the bad effects that other communities in other states in particular have had. So those will be things that I continue to work on going forward. I think in general.
Can I sit here? Please.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just leave it there and leave enough space for some of my colleagues to talk about their priorities. But just appreciate being with you all and being able to chat about some of my environmental priorities this year.
Great. Thank you very much. And I see we've just been joined by Representative Junie Joseph. Thank you so much for being with us. I understand you have a short amount of time tonight. And what we're doing right now is just going around and asking each legislator to give a little, say some words about the issues and legislation that you're particularly excited about. And before you start, I just want to reiterate, because I don't know if you heard, we were thanking you and Representative Brown for making that committee vote against the bill that was trying to define nuclear as clean. So we really appreciate that here at Empower Our Future. So Representative Joseph, please take it away, a few minutes on what you're excited about.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate the opportunity, and thank you to Empower Our Future for this opportunity tonight to be with you. I'm sorry I can't stay much longer, and I ended up showing up late because we were doing a presentation at the governor's mansion for Black History Month. But nonetheless, thank you so much for this opportunity. To your point, Chris, before I talk about some of the bills that I'm working on, I just wanted to say thank you to community members for reaching out, because at first, when I read the bill myself, I thought it was a good bill. But after hearing from you, I received over 100 emails from you overnight. It was really helpful. And you text me in committee as well. It meant so much because it's so important for me for the work that I do at the state capitol that I hear from you. So thank you. And please keep reaching out, because that is very helpful. Because sometimes we think we understand those bills, even after reading them a couple of times. But when we hear from you, from community and from experts who work in the field, it's really helpful. Thank you for that. So this year, I'm running a couple of environmental bills. I'm also on the E&E, which is the Energy and Environment Committee. And I am there for the next 2 years, and I will continue to vote on policies that are important to you. This year, one of the bills that I'm working on, it's called On-Bill Repayment Program Financing. So this bill is really to help community members who want to do energy-related upgrades on their property. We're trying to create a program so that we make it easier for working community members to be able to do these type of upgrades. I have another bill, which is, I mentioned before, which is a utility consumer protection. If you remember the last time when Excel de-energized, that is the word that they've used, or communities, they did not give us much notice. So in this particular bill, we're trying to tackle some of these issues as well. I have another bill that's coming from the Senate with, I believe, Senator Marchman and Winter. And what that bill is doing is giving voice to young people in the community who are doing work in the environment space. I have a couple of other bills. I have another bill that is called labeling, with Rep. Bacon, that is coming forward. Again, I need your support. Please come and testify in these bills. I need your support. I'm not an expert when it comes to the environment, but I want to be an expert for you because I know that's your #1 priority as a community. So please be a partner and walk with me and on this journey. So I'm delighted to be here. Please reach out to me if you want to know more about the bills I'm working on. Thank you so much. And by the way, the governor just walked in. So hello, Governor. Say hello to the governor.
President Joseph, good to see you.
Thank you.
Oh, these are your friends over there. I see.
Our future.
Oh, wonderful. Good to
Yes.
see you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Joseph. And now for Representative Smith, please take it away.
Great. We're all in our different spheres doing whatever we can. So it's great to be here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm sure you all know that I am a new legislator, so I'm not as heavily involved as Rep. Joseph and Brown, but I'm trying to get up to speed, and I've got some bills I think that'll be of interest. First of all, I will say the nuclear clean energy designation, I am an absolute hard no on it. You know, I grew up in Southern California. I went to UC Santa Barbara, and we had Diablo Canyon just up the way, you know, on an earthquake fault line. And my husband is German and, you know, marched against nuclear long ago. So, and I'm also very concerned about, and I don't know if you all have heard, the northwest part of the state would also like to bring in nuclear waste that's been stored for decades and no one will take. And so they are trying to put a proposal together to have trains coming from who knows where across which counties and storing it in the Northwest. So something to keep definitely an eye on. So I was originally going to work on a data center bill with Rep. Brown. And in terms of water and energy usage, it got a little unwieldy for me, so I dropped it, but it seems like something's happening on the Senate side, so we'll see how that goes. I am with Representative Brown working on an instant permitting process for solar panels, which will help save money and time for homeowners, and this is just strictly for homeowners, to get solar panels up on their homes. Evidently, there's stories in Boulder where, you know, they've taken months and months to permit solar panels. Contractors, you know, do the bid, and then it takes 6 months to get the permit, and then all of a sudden everything's gotten more expensive and they can no longer do the job. So hopefully we'll get that through the House. And at this point, it's supposed to be in Energy and Environment on Thursday. I'm not certain if we're quite ready to have it go to committee, but it's going to be probably this week or next week. Another thing that I just got asked for to join on as a late bill is Representative Tammy Story's. You know, she works so hard on the mapping of the pipes and abandoned pipes and leakage and so forth. And evidently, legislation was passed on advanced leak detection technology, but the commission has not really put any teeth in it. And so our bill will direct the commission to have rules in place regarding advanced leak detection, and this would be methane, which as a scientist, I measured methane emissions from natural areas. Set a date by November 1st of 2025 to have those rules in place, which I think is really important for safety. We all remember the home that blew up in Firestone when the two people were working on their, I think they were working on their furnace and it blew up because of a abandoned pipe that was leaking and they died. The other thing that I'm working on, which is not energy related, but it's environmentally related, is a turf bill to extend the turf bill last year. So Last year, cities can no longer have high water turf in areas like medians and along transportation corridors and so forth. We want to extend that to multi-family apartments and condos, and then direct all municipalities to develop their own regulations to reduce the amount of high water turf in new residential builds. So trying to tackle both water and energy this session.
Thank you so much. It's really wonderful to see democracy at work, at least in Colorado, and really appreciate the work of all our representatives and senators here tonight. I received a notice that Representative Joseph had to leave because of it's a busy time at the Capitol.
Yes.
But she encourages everybody in the audience to reach out and work with her. And as we go ahead now, as you all know, we've solicited questions for you from the community through the Empower Our Future website. And we'll start with those, and then as time allows, move to questions from viewers tonight submitted through the Q&A function on Zoom. So I'll go ahead and read the questions. And I know that Representative Brown also has a limited amount of time tonight. And I got a note from his aide saying that the wildfire question would be one that he would be particularly happy to answer. So I'll just start with that question. And this came in again from our community through our website. And the question is, what legislation related to wildfire prevention, preparation, and/or insurance will be offered this year, and does it have a chance of succeeding? And Representative Brown, before you start, I'm starting with you because they suggested that would be one you'd be excited to talk about. But as we go through these questions, I'll just put it out to both of you, and whichever one wants to start answering, and then if the other one wants to add something, please go ahead. So we'll just have a conversation around these questions. So once again, Representative Brown, wildfires.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. That's a great question. And my aide clearly knows me well. He's worked with me for over 2 years. This year, my focus on wildfire is really centered around the effect that it's having on our homeowners insurance industry in particular. As wildfires have become more common, fueled by climate change, we are increasingly in a situation where people find it harder and harder to find affordable or even available homeowners insurance. And so I've got a couple of, actually, I think I have 3 bills now that help to address this. One is a bill that helps to make important changes to what's called the FAIR Plan, which is a kind of a insurer of last resort for folks with homeowners insurance. We passed the original FAIR Plan bill about 2 years ago. And through the course of implementing that bill, and just before, we're just about ready to issue its first policies, but we need some important changes to that bill. So we'll be doing that here in committee probably within the next week. The second bill that I'm bringing in the wildfire space is related to making sure that insurance companies are accounting for the wildfire mitigation that people are doing on their properties, or that neighborhoods are doing, or that communities are doing when they are pricing your homeowner's insurance. So right now we have a lot of insurance companies that are using models that may or may not really accurately reflect the wildfire risk. And it's important for us to not only make sure that those models that those models reflect the underlying risk, but that we are letting people know what kinds of steps they can take to reduce their risk and hopefully reduce their own costs when it comes to homeowners insurance. So that's sort of the transparency and modeling bill that I'm running. And then the third is a bill related to actual kind of mitigation efforts. Hail is as much a part of the problem of the stability of our homeowners insurance market as wildfire is. And so I've got a bill that will help to bring new dollars towards making sure that people can get hail resistant roofs as opposed to just a standard roof that needs to be replaced after a major hailstorm. And that same bill also has within it a new enterprise that the state would set up that would help to pay for excessive losses in the event of a very large wildfire, such as the Marshall Fire. And that again is the idea of, we're helping to make sure that folks are protected in the event that the worst happens. So it's important that we would actually, the state would go out and purchase what's called a reinsurance policy, which is kind of like insurance for insurance companies that would help to stabilize the market. So I've got 3 different bills that are working on the wildfire insurance space. I know there are some other efforts about vegetation mitigation that I think Rep. Morrow has brought. We continue to have conversations about the best way to deal with the wildfire issue. But the biggest impact right now that I'm trying to solve that's really affecting people's pocketbooks is the impact of wildfire on insurance policies. And so I've been really making a strong run at that this session.
Thank you very
Question. Thank
much.
you.
Yeah, thank you. Representative Smith, do you have anything to add on the wildfire issue?
No, but and here comes Senator Amabile, because I know she has been working with Rep. Brown in the space too. I live right next to Sanitas, so I'm certainly aware of the issues around wildfire mitigation and insurance.
Okay. And so we now have Representative Amabile with us. Are you able to hear? Are you on? Yes, hi.
Hello, sorry, I'm
Thank
late.
you.
We went
Yeah.
to committee today.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. We really appreciate you being here. We've gone through some initial time for each of our members of the legislature to say a little bit about what bills related to climate and environment they're excited about or thinking about this year. And so I'd just like to invite you to take 3 or 4 minutes to just talk about the bills that you're excited about this year.
Okay, so I'm on the Joint Budget Committee, and that has been a pretty overwhelming thing to be doing. And we have to make about $1 billion in cuts. So we are really doing a deep dive into every single department, every line item, looking for places to cut. So I do have also a big legislative agenda, including, I think I just came in on the tail end of this bill that I'm working on with Rep. Brown. And which is a fire insurance, making fire insurance affordable for people. And it is, did you already talk about it, Kyle? Yeah, okay, so I don't want to, Kyle had 2 bills, I'm only on one of them, but it's really, if it works, if we get the policy right, it will be a national leader in making this change that will actually bring down the cost of fire insurance. So, of homeowners insurance. We also are, the insurer of last resort is just getting stood up now. And that was a bill from 2 years ago and is getting implemented right now. One of the things I've learned on the Joint Budget Committee is that a lot of stuff gets passed, but it never actually gets funded, or it never gets implemented. And so really trying hard to make sure we're doing a good job of getting things implemented that need to be implemented and getting dropping stuff that doesn't need to be implemented. I'm working on a bill for the energy office, and it's a funding mechanism for the energy office, but I'll tell you that there's been a lot of back and forth.
Representative Brown, do you have any parting words?
Yeah, just thanks so much for including me in this, and apologies that I can't stay the whole time. Parent-teacher conferences are a real thing, and appreciate all of the work that you do, and always continue to reach out to me and let me know what's going on and how you're feeling about certain things. So.
Thank you so much. Thanks for spending your valuable time with us. We really appreciate it. Okay, so we've got a number of questions remaining in addition to the fire question that came in from the community. And so I just like to proceed going down them. Our representatives and senators have received these questions in advance, so they've had a chance to think about them. So I'll just go through them. First, we've received some questions about the status of community choice energy in Colorado. Community choice energy would allow cities and counties that are served by an investor-owned utility such as Xcel or Black Hills to choose alternative wholesale electricity suppliers on behalf of their residents and businesses. And the potential benefits include competition to drive lower rates and better service. After completion of a study by the PUC, the legislature in a previous session began drafting legislation that would enable the formation of CCEs here in Colorado, community choice energy. What's the current status of community choice energy legislation?
Well, I can jump in, and then maybe Lesley knows something about that too, but I don't think there's anything happening on that this year. And Kyle and I did try to run the bill last year, and we just ran into a brick wall of opposition, led by labor. And it's tough. And this year I'm really getting a taste for that, but it is tough to run a bill that labor doesn't like. And, but they weren't the only ones. And we had a great draft. I think we had really done a lot of the work that needed to be done. But even some environmental groups were not convinced that this was the right policy at the right time. And some of them felt that we were doing pretty well with Xcel. These are their words, not mine, and I'm paraphrasing too, but that Xcel had come to the table and they didn't necessarily think this was the right time to derail that. But I'll let Lesley, Rep. Smith speak.
Thank you. I know this is something that former Representative Hooton was working on diligently and didn't get it through. And I have not heard of anybody picking up on this this year. So
well, appreciate the update.
Yeah.
The next question has to do with something that's being called the PROTECT Act. And in a recent guest column in the Colorado Sun, the Colorado Coalition for a Livable Climate called for the creation of a Colorado Climate Change Cost Recovery and Adaptation Fund. Such a fund is needed because climate change has already cost Colorado taxpayers millions of dollars, and ongoing climate change will challenge our whole economy, including businesses, farmers, ranchers, and city and town budgets, with lost income plus additional costs for repairs and mitigation. Right now, taxpayers are on the hook for 100% of the cost from climate damages. So this is called the PROTECT Act, Polluter Responsibility and Opportunity to Ensure Communities Thrive. Such legislation is already the law in New York State and Vermont, and it's being considered elsewhere. Funding would come from fees assessed on the largest fossil fuel companies doing business in Colorado, and it's based on the fairness principle that those who pollute should help pay for the consequences, including infrastructure repair and improvements and compensation to Coloradans for climate change. So the text of the PROTECT Act is essentially already written. So what would it take to get the legislator working on such a law for Colorado?
I will take a shot at this. I have not heard of this. It sounds, I need to do the research on it. I'm wondering, for those fees that get collected, then how would they be used?
Mhm.
Do you know? Do you have any knowledge?
Yeah, well, there's the bill that's already in New York State that could be modified to fit the needs of Colorado. So I just out of curiosity, what would it take to get some, would that be a study group, or what would it take to get something like that started here?
Rep. Amabile may have a better idea since I am brand new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it might be hard for this session.
Sure.
But that's something that could be worked in over the interim, and I think there'd be a lot of interest in that. I mean, one of the things we're trying really hard to do this year in the legislature is shore up the things that the protections in Colorado that
Mhm.
might be taken away at the federal level.
Yeah.
So on a lot of different levels, we are working on that. And this is certainly one of the things that is at risk, given
Yeah.
the environment at the federal level. We
Mhm.
did pass a bill in 2023 that went after polluters, and it was called the pollution protection measures, and it was Jennifer Bacon and Rep. Wilford, Senator Winter, and Senator Gonzalez. And so to the extent that this might be an extension of that, I'm sure that they would be very interested in talking more about that.
Mhm. Okay, great. So in the materials that we sent, there are the links to these various bills in New York State. The next question has to do with some proposals by former Public Utilities Commission Chair Jeff Ackerman, who was on an Empower Hour a couple of months ago. And he had two proposals, and we're really interested in them. One is, he pointed out that electricity is a necessity in the modern world. And he proposes, therefore, that the legislature require investor-owned utilities such as Xcel to sell a certain basic amount of electricity to low-income households at cost. He calls this a utility society regulatory compact and proposes 400 kilowatt hours per month at cost. And I'd like to hear your comments on that.
I'll jump in if you want, Lesley, or
Sure.
yeah, I mean, that sounds good. And I'm, theoretically and ideologically would support that, but I'd like to understand the details of how that works for the people who are still left paying.
Mhm.
Is that drive up the rates? Is that the taxpayers who will pick up the difference, or like, and let me just admit right now that I haven't looked at these questions ahead of time. I just haven't, I missed them. I missed all the links too. So
Okay.
there's something going on with my email, but in any
Okay.
case, I would need to understand
Sure.
the details of that. Of course, it is a pretty fundamental necessity, and like housing and like healthcare. So, but we haven't really worked out how to make sure everybody has housing. We really haven't worked out how to make sure everybody has healthcare. And, there's costs. And so all of that would have to be worked out, but I certainly think it's fundamentally a good idea.
Representative Smith, do you have things you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, no, I think like Senator Amabile says, it's the right thing to do, the morally correct thing to do. I'm just finding that one of my bills has come out of Gilpin County, and it's to develop a fund for low interest loans to low income people with failing septic systems. And so, I got a lot of pushback. It would be a fee on permits for septic systems, new ones. And, I've gotten a lot of pushback from various lobbying groups like the County Commissioners Incorporated or the, municipal league and so forth because of this sort of the fairness thing, like, you know, Boulder County happens to have the most expensive permit at $3,700, whereas, you know, some of the rural counties have only $100 permit cost. And so, you know, would Boulder be subsidizing, you know, other parts of the state? So when you start digging in and seeing how this all works and you start hearing from other people, it makes you realize, you know, sort of the bigger picture. Also, I would say, we all know that our governor leans libertarian, and you know, I don't know if he would necessarily like such an idea.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ackerman also proposes that the legislature could help the PUC by clarifying and streamlining the PUC decision-making. And he said this would include defining public interest, which I guess is in the language already, but would make it clearer what public interest means and defining that in statute and establishing criteria for such things as price impact, emissions, local economic impacts, and system resiliency. And so he said that would really help the PUC in their work. And so we'd be interested in either or both of your comments on that proposal.
Yeah, again, I mean, yes, that sounds like a great idea. The idea that there wouldn't be resistance to that, of course there would be, but that's okay. Doesn't mean it's not worth doing. But yes, it sounds like a great idea.
Representative Smith?
I agree.
Anything? Okay. And then we received several questions related to the coal ash at Excel's Valmont plant in Boulder. Over the decades, Excel Colorado has deposited near the Valmont plant large amounts of coal ash, which is a waste product of coal burning. The toxic ash poses a threat to groundwater, and Excel's planned remediation of the 1.6 million tons of toxic ash threatens local air quality. And the cleanup site is in very close proximity to the underserved Columbine Mobile Home Park, critical wildlife habitat at Sombrero Marsh, the Boulder Technical Education Center, and Stasio softball fields. And so there are other neighborhoods approximately 1 mile from the site. So this question from a community said, if you support stringent standards, including air quality monitoring during the coal ash remediation project, can you communicate this to the CDPHE, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment?
I'll say something. So I'm an environmental scientist that, you know, measured methane greenhouse gas emissions, and I also helped develop the curriculum for Sombrero Marsh for Boulder Valley, and you know, I'm very familiar with that area, and you know, I'm just wondering if you know, I sort of think about the EPA and the, you know, the Superfund sites, and you know, I don't know if any of the coal ash cleanup areas across the country have qualified for Superfund site, and then the funding, but who knows what's going to happen with all that, our current administration. But I definitely would, you know, support communicating with CDPHE about cleanup of the site, and you know, there would have to be a remediation plan, and anything that would be impacting air quality or groundwater or so forth would have to be monitored while that remediation happened and reported out, I would assume. So, and you know, is that more the purview of the county commissioners, or I don't know if that actually is within the city limits out there. It could just be unincorporated Boulder County, but you know, would it be more appropriate for them to be doing that versus state legislators? I don't know.
Senator Amabile?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just give the short answer. Yes, I'm happy to talk to CDPHE about that, and I absolutely think that that should be carefully monitored, and we should hold Excel's feet to the fire on the remediation effort.
I understand that one of the concerns is that some of the air monitoring has been discontinued. And so there's some concerns that in the process of carting materials back and forth, it may get into the air and cause air pollution problems of concern to these neighborhoods.
Are you talking about the thing that the county commissioners ended? The air quality monitoring that they had in place and they decided not to continue, or
I
is there?
think that was what came in through this question. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that was out at the reservoir.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'd say that it's worth this group taking that up with the county commissioners. I did talk to them about that, and they felt like it was unnecessary and redundant. And that's why they decided not to continue that contract, but I know other people feel differently about it, so, yeah.
So okay, thank you very much.
Well, and I also said that, you know, because having worked up at the long-term ecological research site up at the Mountain Research Station, you know, long-term data are really critical. And, you know, I thought it was very short-sighted for them to cut funding for that site. I don't know if that site necessarily would pick up what was happening, you know, any remediation pollution that would come off that process. I don't think that site would be close enough. I don't think, you know, you've got the mountain between Boulder Res and that site there. So I think if there were air quality monitoring, it would have to be set up right on site there.
Okay, great. Thank you. We've already talked about the wildfire question. Here's another question that came in. I would like to know what the legislators are aware of in relation to changes in state incentives for home electrification, weatherization, and EV purchases.
I don't know that anything has changed, but I'm trying to think. There was like the governor in his budget request said he didn't want us to fund the electric school buses because they were going to get federal funding for that. And there have been, I think there have been some changes in the EV tax credit and the electric bicycle tax credit to make those more responsive to the actual people who are selling the vehicles and the bicycles. But I don't think there's been big changes, but maybe the person who asked that question is aware of something that I'm not aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I just, you know, again, as Rep. Amabile said, this is a really tough budget year. So as we all know now, Colorado is the #1 state for the most EV, right? Even we've surpassed California. So, you know, once those incentives get used up, and it may be that the state is close to using up those incentives, I don't see any money coming in this year to provide more incentive money, but Rep. Amabile would know that better than me.
Well, I mean, in the weeds a little bit, the whole tax credit thing is a Tabor refund mechanism. So, so our budget, we're in trouble this year, not because we're in a recession, but because we had a decline in inflation and our population didn't grow as much as we thought. And so that means we're up against the Tabor cap this year and have to refund money. Like if we didn't have to refund the money above the Tabor cap, we would have plenty of money to do a lot of things. But these tax credits are a method for refunding the Tabor excess. And some of them have a trigger because next year it looks like that delta between the Tabor cap and where we are is going to go down, and we might actually end up not being able to do a lot of the tax credits that we have passed. But I haven't heard that there are tax credits that were passed last year that are on the chopping block for this year.
Okay, thank you. Related to that question, there's another question about electrification of transportation. This questioner said, there's clearly a war underway between the electric utilities and the oil and gas extractive industries in the USA when it comes to what Americans drive. So can Colorado, the PUC, our legislature, or the governor look at stepping in and using their bully pulpit to hammer out cooperative agreements to speed up the innovations needed to transportation electrification?
I mean,
Well-
yes. You know, I think actually our governor has done a pretty good job of that. Not to say he couldn't do better, but and as Rep. Smith said, we are leading the charge here on adoption of EVs, which is, you know, one piece. And of course, there's so much more to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing I would like to see actually is, you know, we both have ID4s, which is by VW, and because of the, you know, what VW did with the diesel, you know, sort of lying about mileage and all, they have these Electrify America charging stations where they're fast chargers, and we get free charging for 3 years. Well, we've got 4 at the Crossroads Mall, 29th Street Mall, and then there's 4 at the Costco in Superior. And you know, it's almost impossible to get a slot to be able to charge up. And for me, when it's snowy, it's really hard to get into my garage because I have to access it from the alley, and the alley doesn't get cleared. And I'm finding driving to and from Denver when it's this cold really, really eats up the battery. And we don't have chargers at the Capitol. So, you know, I would like to see more push to get fast charging chargers in the urban, you know, area of Denver, Boulder, you know, on through the Front Range. That's one thing where Tesla has really shined is, you know, they have their fast charging stations everywhere and lots of them. And I think that's one area where Colorado can strengthen up the electric transportation system.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So we've got a few minutes left for a couple of live questions. We won't be able to get to all of them from the Q&A, but we'll send them to you so you can see what other questions are out there just to get a pulse. This one, here's one from the live Q&A. When it comes to energy, pollution, and climate, what do you hear is most important to our Boulder County voters, and how are the voices different across the state?
Lesley, do you want to start that? Because you've got a big district, which I, of course, used to have, and
Right.
hearing more from people across the state.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think it's just really interesting. Certainly, those that are in, you know, heavy oil and gas producing counties like Weld County and on some of the western slope, you know, it's not like they're against other types of energy and, you know, electric cars, but they definitely want to continue producing oil and gas because, you know, that provides well-paying union jobs for their communities. And, you know, that's part of the issue with the Northwest part of the state, right? They're closing down, the coal mines are closing down the coal-powered power plants. And those are well-paying union jobs. And it's really going to be impacting the community. So, you know, their idea is let's go nuclear, which, you know, as I've already said, I'm completely opposed to. But so certainly in Boulder County, you know, we pride ourselves on, you know, having a lot of electric cars, having solar panels on our houses. We want low emissions. We want to hold oil and gas accountable. And I'm willing to push as hard as I can, but that's not everybody across the state by any means.
Senator?
Yeah, so I'll just echo that, in this last election, I knocked on the doors of all of the mobile home communities in Boulder County. And energy and environment weren't at the top of their list because people who are struggling economically want us to focus on the economy. And they want us to focus on housing and bringing the cost of housing down. They want the cost of energy to come down. They want the cost of everything to be lower because they feel like, I talk to young people who are living in these communities and who went out and borrowed money to get a college degree and maybe have a degree in engineering, or they're teachers, or they're making a big contribution to our community. And they're living in these mobile home communities, and they are renting, and they feel like they're not going to be able to live the dream, the American dream. And while I understand people might poo-poo that is actually a real feeling that people have. And I think it's important for us as politicians to listen to that and to be responsive to that. And that's not to say that we can't focus on more than one thing, but we can't, you asked, what are we hearing across the state? And that's what I'm hearing is we want you to focus on kitchen table issues because we're hurting.
Yeah. This is very helpful. Thank you both. We're getting close to our wind up time.
Now, Chris, I just saw there's the one question about innovation that
Yeah.
somebody submitted, and
Yes, please.
one area that I think we could work on is the idea of microgrids to become more resilient. I worked at CU for 30 years, and I was, a CU region until January 5th or so, 4th. And, that's one thing with East Campus. It's tried to become its own little energy hub because when the Great Flood happened in 2013, it was essentially an island. And so, they've been building, there's a lot of solar panels there. They're trying to be able to be off the main grid if something like that happens again. And, that awful, the winds that we were expecting and then Excel went and shut down power, sort of seemingly in a willy-nilly way. We didn't get our power shut down, which I thought was very odd, but other parts of town did, and the restaurateurs didn't know that it was going to happen, and food was damaged and so forth. So I think one innovation I think we could work on is trying to develop microgrids. So when Excel has to shut down because of high winds, and I understand that issue, it doesn't mean that the power shuts down for everyone. We could go more of a local, smaller nexus of power grids.
Thank you. And for yes, please go ahead.
I'd love to answer Megan's question because a lot of people have been asking me this question. And it's about this bill that's being brought by the Speaker and the Majority Leader, the Speaker in the House and the Majority Leader in the Senate. And it is an audit of all of the regulations that we've passed in a variety of different areas across the state for the last 10 years. And it does include environmental regulations, but also regulations on other kinds of businesses. And so I signed on to that bill as a supporter. I think it's good government. It doesn't give authority to repeal anything. It gives authority for this group to recommend action, but anything that would happen as a result of this committee would have to be run as a bill by lawmakers. And so there would be no automatic repealing of anything through this committee. And I will tell you that I have been pushing, and the environmental groups have been pushing to make some amendments that make it more clear. And they are working really hard to amend the bill to get the environmental community to a better place. And as a member of the Joint Budget Committee, I am seeing, programs that were put into place 10 years ago or 5 years ago that never did what they were supposed to do, but they still are costing us money.
Mhm.
And I do think it's worth us taking a look at that. And I have heard this reference that it's the Colorado Doge, and I don't think that's what it is. And I don't think that the leadership in both houses thought that's what they were signing on to either. And so, I think we have to wait and see what does it look like when it gets amended, and if people are, still really upset about it, I'm happy to talk more about that. I do think that there is some good government stuff that we need to be doing more of in order so that we can actually fund the things that are a priority and that are effective and that are doing what we hoped they were doing. Because there is waste in our government, and I don't know how you get rid of all of it, but I do think it's worth taking a look at these things.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. I see we're right at the 7 o'clock hour, and I just want to honor your time and thank you so much for spending time with us and being so forthcoming about what's happening and what you're excited about. And again, we really appreciate democracy working and your work for our community. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it back over to Mary, who's going to give us some wrap up and previews of coming attractions. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris. And yes, thank you so much, Senator Amabile and Representative Smith. Really appreciate you being here. And Chris, your ability to kind of juggle who was on the call and who wasn't. I need to also thank the other Empower Our Future Communications team members who are integral to making these Empower Hours happen. And they are Paul Cullen, Steve Whitaker, and Julie Zonheiser. Thanks again. Look forward to seeing you guys, hopefully in March and April. Good night.
Thank you.